All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the third part of the show, we're going to talk about some NFL quarterbacks that are going to be under some pressure in 2024, or facing the most pressure in 2024. So there's some that I have. The first one I'll get into, just to get him out of the way, is the quarterback of my team, and that is the New York Giants, and that's Daniel Jones. He's definitely facing some pressure. He's dealt with some injuries over the course of his career, and coming off of a playoff win a couple years ago, the Giants paid him, and last year, I mean, everything that could go wrong did go wrong, and he ended up getting hurt. With the neck injury, not as severe as the one back in 2021, but he had another neck injury, and then he unfortunately tore his ACL and missed the rest of the year. And this happened against the Raiders late in the season. So you had Tyrod Taylor and Tommy DeVito starting. But yeah, now, the Giants, you heard about them trying to trade up to draft Drake May, and that didn't pan out. So they drafted Malik Nabers instead, the wide receiver out of LSU. And, they brought in Drew Lock because now Tyrod Taylor's with the Jets. So you have him, you have Tommy DeVito. That's your quarterback room, is those two guys and Daniel Jones. And this is kind of it for Daniel Jones. This is his last shot. And, well, at least with the Giants, this is his last shot. But if he ends up not playing well, then, him and the Giants are going to part ways. And there was some speculation on could he be traded during the draft. So yeah, he's facing some pressure because now if he doesn't play well, I mean the Giants, they could go and say, hey, well, Drew Lock could be the starter. Now again, I don't think Drew Lock is going to be this massive upgrade over Daniel Jones, but I mean, they might have to make a change if Daniel Jones does not play well. Of course, if he does start the year, which I think it seems like it's trending that way. But yeah, I mean this is it for Daniel Jones with the Giants. And if it doesn't pan out, if he doesn't play well, then he's going to end up going elsewhere. And the Giants, they gave him a receiver in Malik Nabers, like I said. They addressed the offensive line in the offseason. So, let's see what Daniel Jones could do now with getting some protection. And now you have the number one wide receiver of the future. Losing Saquon Barkley is tough. And, Saquon Barkley has really helped Daniel Jones' career. And now he's not there. So we'll see how that goes. But, yeah, that's one quarterback that is facing pressure going into 2024. Another quarterback who I talked about in the previous segment is Will Levis. I think he's facing some pressure because the Bengals, well, they got a couple of former Bengals, the head coach and Tyler Boyd now. But with the Titans, they got an offensive-minded head coach. They have surrounded him with talent. They also drafted an offensive lineman as well. I forgot to mention that too. But yeah, you drafted an offensive lineman. You signed a couple of veteran wide receivers in Calvin Ridley and Tyler Boyd. You signed Tony Pollard this offseason as well. They have surrounded Will Levis with weapons. And he's got to go out there and play well. Because, if he doesn't play well, the Titans might, say, all right, well, we got to go in a different direction then. They might pull the plug. And, it's only year two, but, we've seen in the past teams pull the plug on guys, even after 1 year. I mean, look at what the Cardinals did with Josh Rosen, and they drafted Kyler Murray. So, Will Levis, he's, got to go out there and prove it that you're the guy. And like I said, they gave him the tools to be successful. Now he's just going to go out there and execute. So that's another quarterback that faces pressure. Go to another quarterback in the NFC East. And I was going to say Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott, I think, is facing pressure in 2024. Jalen Hurts, he made it to a Super Bowl. So I was thinking of Jalen Hurts just because of, the Eagles collapsing towards the end of the year, but I think Dak Prescott faces more pressure. Because this is a guy that has not made it past the divisional round. Jalen Hurts made it to a Super Bowl. Now, you could say, well, he had a top offensive line, and, we could go back and forth on that. But Jalen Hurts did make it to a Super Bowl. Dak Prescott hasn't made it out of the second round. And Stephen Jones made some comments saying that he believes Dak could win a championship. Well, you got to make it to a championship game before you talk about championships. They have not made it past the second round. Now I've said this. Dak Prescott has become a better quarterback since he first entered the league. But, again, where has that really gotten them? And, this is a big year for Dak. This is, this could be it with him and the Cowboys. Now, the Cowboys, they say, well, we want to, they want to keep him and all that. But who knows? He could end up going elsewhere and getting paid. And I think he is facing pressure because, well, I think also playing for the Dallas Cowboys, you're always going to be facing pressure. But, this is, you got, your first start was in 2016. We're going into 2024 now. And, like I said, all you've done is get to the second round. And, the Cowboys, they added through the draft, but, I mean, you look at the NFC as a whole. I mean, I don't think they made significant upgrades where you're going to put them, you're going to say that they can knock off some of these better teams like the Lions, like the 49ers, the Packers. I mean, look at what the Packers did. Packers got better. So, I think Dak is going to have a good season, but I don't think it's going to be, it's going to be more of the same. They got to prove something to me that they could, go further. And I don't think they are. And you could say, well, that's coming from a Giant fan. I understand that, but Giant fans aren't the only ones that believe this. This is fans across the league. So I think Dak's facing some pressure because, again, it's a contract year, and, you're not a rookie anymore. We're now well into your career, and you haven't made it past the second round. So you put up good numbers in the regular season, but you can't get it done in the postseason. So, and I think even if the Cowboys don't give him a new deal, I think he's going to find one elsewhere. A team's going to give him money. But, the Cowboys, show me something. Because they have failed to do that. And, it's time. But I don't think it's going to happen. Some other quarterbacks. Russell Wilson, I think, is another quarterback you could look at that's facing pressure. I mean, didn't really work out in Denver. You get another shot here with the Steelers, and I think Russ will do okay. I expect the Steelers to maybe win 9-10 games, maybe squeak into the playoffs. But, yeah, I mean, Russ has been trending down the last couple of years, and I don't think we're going to see the same Russell Wilson that we saw in Seattle. You're going to see the Russell Wilson we saw in Denver. But, the Steelers, they addressed the offensive line. They drafted Roman Wilson from Michigan to be that replacement to Deontay Johnson. You got George Pickens there, Pat Freiermuth, a good running game, a good defense. I mean, I think with Mike Tomlin, I think the Steelers is a good spot for Russ. I think he could do okay. But, again, he's got to go out there and show that he's still got it. Because, if it doesn't work out in Pittsburgh, well, I don't know who else is going to give you a shot. You might end up being just a backup quarterback at this point. So that's another quarterback. I would say Tua is another quarterback that, is facing some pressure here. The Dolphins are going to be looking to pay him, and they got weapons all over the place. Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. They added Odell Beckham Jr. Look at their running game with Raheem Mostert and Devon Achane, and they drafted a running back as well. They got playmakers all over the place. And that playoff game against the Chiefs, it was a tough atmosphere to play in with the weather. I mean, I don't think anybody should be playing in that kind of weather. But that's just what ended up happening. So, the odds were stacked against them before kickoff. But, I mean, put up good numbers in the regular season, but yeah, I still, he might not be the long-term answer, but they might pay him. So I think he's another guy that's facing pressure because, and they also, let the division slip away to the Bills. They lost to the Bills the last game of the regular season. So, it's they kind of want to rebound from that and, win this division. And it's going to be tougher because the Jets, I think, are going to be better. But, yeah, I think Tua's another guy that's facing pressure. I look at Deshaun Watson, the guy I talked about yesterday. He's facing pressure because, the Browns, they invested a lot of money in him, trading for him. And that trade looks very lopsided right now. And the Browns are a good team, but really the major piece that they're missing is quarterback play. And, you give Joe Flacco credit for coming in and playing really well for them and making the playoffs, but Deshaun Watson is who they invested in. And right now he hasn't really lived up to it. So I think he's going to have to, go out there and play really well, and they're expecting him to. But I don't know. Deshaun Watson hasn't really played well since he's gotten to Cleveland, but also because he's missed time and he's been hurt. So, but we'll see how he is in 2024. But he's another quarterback that I'd put in that discussion. I'm going to say Kirk Cousins is experiencing some pressure too because he went to Atlanta because, the Vikings, they were going to draft their quarterback in the future, and then the Falcons went and did the same thing. So what if Kirk Cousins doesn't play well? Then maybe they go with Michael Penix. But the other thing too is, I say that, but also Kirk Cousins got paid that massive contract, so even if he doesn't play well, it's like you still get your money. But, now you got that future QB sitting behind you. There might be. I don't think he feels it, but I'm saying I think there's some pressure there to play well because that's your replacement. So, you got to go out there and play well. I'll actually say that Caleb Williams is going to experience some pressure too, and the reason for that is you look at and we're going to talk about him in the next segment, but you look at what the Bears did. Same thing with Will Levis, although I think the Bears supporting cast is better than the Titans. But they went out and they traded for Keenan Allen. They drafted Rome Odunze. You got Cole Kmet, signed DeAndre Swift. DJ Moore is already there. There's a lot around Caleb Williams. And they're expecting big things out of him. For me, I think the Bears could be a playoff team. Wild card team, but I think they could fight for a wild card spot there. You're stepping into a very good situation in terms of your playmakers, and you're the number 1 overall pick. So there's going to be pressure with that as well. But if you go out there and you don't play well, now it could be one of those things where he struggles early, gets better late. But if he goes out there and has a horrific rookie season like Bryce Young had, which I don't think he is. That's the Bears fans are not going to be happy. So, but that's just my opinion. I think there's some pressure there with Caleb Williams just because of what the Bears invested in, what they've done this offseason. They have surrounded Will Levis, Caleb Williams with a ton of talent. So he's got to go out there and prove it. So I'm trying to think if there's anybody else that I failed to mention. I think that was pretty much all of the. I think that's pretty. Oh, Geno Smith. Geno Smith's another one too. They traded for Sam Howell now, the Seahawks. So I think they're going to battle it out for the starting job, and this could be Geno's. I don't think Geno played bad last year, but didn't play as well as the previous season. And I think even if Geno's not a starter, I think he's a solid backup. But that's another quarterback as well. But I think that's pretty much it. I don't think there's anyone else I was going to... Yeah, that's pretty much it. So let me know what you guys think. What quarterback do you think is facing the most pressure going into 2024? Because we did go through a decent amount. So when we come back from our final break of the show, we're going to talk about Caleb Williams and the Bears. A couple things that some of their playmakers had to say regarding the offense, and that will pretty much do it for the show. So, for one final time today, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.